I have my bright lights on, so they're a little, they go a little farther. And I see what looks like a deer coming across the road in front of us. So I start to slow down, but this thing, I remember it just was casually walking. I would think it would move a little faster. So I start to slow down, and then I realize that this deer is enormous. It's just gigantic. I noticed that the whole body is muscle upon muscle upon muscle. It was almost like a cartoon superhero muscle kind of thing. And this had almost like sickle type antlers.
This is the Cryptid Creature Show. I am Brian, and with me as always is my co-host Todd. What's up, buddy?
Hello, Brian. Hello, listeners. Brian, as you know, tonight's guest is Mike.
Nope.
And Mike had an encounter with a very strange creature there in Maine. Something new to us. We have not heard of this thing before, so
yeah.
Let's bring Mike on and see what he's got to say. Are you ready?
Yeah, man, let's get him. There he is. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Mike, thanks for being here. We finally got a hold of you and were able to talk to you. It's been a while, man.
Yeah, my schedule was pretty crazy.
That's all right. Well, we appreciate you taking the time and being here today with us finally.
Yeah, we do.
Thanks for having me.
So you had reached out to us and said you saw something very strange. And where did this happen at, Mike?
It was in Bar Harbor, Maine.
Okay.
But it wasn't in the town Bar Harbor. It was on Cadillac Mountain where the town is.
Okay. Is that where you're from? And do you live in Maine now, or?
No, I'm in Ohio now. At the time I was in Florida. Bar Harbor is really pretty and really nice. I've been there once before. So when I was in Florida, I'd get away from the heat. We just went up there for a little vacation for a week.
Well, why don't you take us into what you were doing and what you saw, what you experienced that day?
Okay. Just whenever?
Yep.
Yeah. Start from the beginning.
Yep.
We flew into Portland and we got a rental car, a little Ford Fiesta. Yeah, a little Ford Fiesta. So it was a smaller car. And we drove, I think it was Portland. But anyway, we drove into Bar Harbor, which was about an hour. So Bar Harbor, if you look at it straight down on the map, there's a little island off the coast of Maine about 2/3 of the way up. And it's called Cadillac Mountain. And they have a national park there called Acadia National Park. So on the northeast side of the mountain, there is a little town called Bar Harbor. It's a really pretty town, bunch of big old hotels, a little area for shops and all that kind of fun stuff. They have, I don't know, maybe it was a whaling town at one point, but they do whale tours and all kinds of stuff. So we drove in from Portland or wherever it was we landed, I can't remember. And we had a little hotel. It was about halfway from the mainland to Bar Harbor. And when you are on the island, basically there's a road that goes through the mountain and then a road that goes basically around the mountain. And there may be little offshoots here and there in little towns. So we had a hotel. It was really nice, but it was really small. We didn't want to be in the actual city itself because it's relatively expensive there. So we got out a little bit, and when we turned into the hotel, it's back behind a bunch of trees, and I thought it was funny because they had a Bigfoot cut out by the road. So I thought, this will be a fun place. So we were there for a week, and about Wednesday, I think, about midweek, it was nighttime, and in Bar Harbor, everything closes at like 9:00. So the gas stations, found out later, the gas stations, all the restaurants, everything. So it was about 9:30, and we were like, we need a munchie or something, something like a cookie or some chips or just something like that. So we got in the car. I knew Bar Harbor was closed. So I thought, well, maybe the gas station up the street would be open. So we got in the car and we drove up to the gas station. And the main road in Bar Harbor they don't have a lot of lights on the main road. I guess it's because it's, the sky and the stars and it's pretty and that kind of stuff. I guess that's kind of the vibe they're going for. But the road was 2-lane road, and it was 9:30-ish, 9:45, somewhere in there. So it was dark, and this was in August or September. I think it was in September, actually, because we were trying to go for the turning of the leaves. So it must have been in September, early second or third week of September. So it was dark by 9 o'clock, 9:30. And we drive up to this gas station thinking it's like a convenience store type of thing. And it was, but it was also closed. So that was probably a 20-minute drive to get there. And by this time it's 10 o'clock. And I said, let's just go back to the room and just deal with all this in the morning, or have breakfast or something. So I turned around and we were going back to the motel, and there was the only time, like I said, there was no lights on the road, but the only time there was a light was if there was a building off the side of the road. So there was like a place for breakfast that would have a light for the parking lot. There may have been a house here or there, or another motel here or there that had a light, but it wasn't like, it wasn't like in a city where there's lights at like every couple hundred feet, so it was dark. And we were driving back to the motel, and we came to this point in the road where it kind of went down into there was a little creek there. So we kind of went down a hill a little bit. We went over this little bridge, and we started to come up the hill, and there was a light there. So I'm not sure if the light was there because of the bridge or because of the curb that was coming up, but there was just a random pole with a light on it. And because it was so dark, and I was a little tired, I wasn't driving super fast. I think the speed limit was like 45 or something like that there. So I was doing probably 35 or so. I just don't want to hit anything, because we have seen deer and stuff in that area a lot. So I didn't want to hit a deer, right? So I'm driving slow, and I start to come up this hill, and the lights, the street lights behind me, and I have my bright lights on, so they're a little, they go a little farther. And I see what looks like a deer coming across the road, in front of us. So I start to slow down, and my lights had just seen it. I just saw a 4-legged thing that was the color of like a white-tailed deer, that tannish, brownish color. And I grew up in Ohio, so we have deer everywhere. So, we're used to when a deer sees a car, it either freezes or it jumps, right? It doesn't hang out, especially on the road usually. But this thing, I remember it just was casually walking. And I thought, of course deer walk, but on the road, out in the open, lights hit it, I would think it would move a little faster. So I start to slow down, and then I realize that this deer is enormous. It's just gigantic. And I get closer to it, and I notice that the whole body is muscle. And I'm not talking like a fit animal or animal in its prime. I'm talking muscle upon muscle upon muscle. It was almost like a cartoon superhero muscle kind of thing. And I kept slowing down. And I got a little close to it, and I probably got within maybe a car length from it. And I stopped, and it just kept slowly walking step by step from right to left. And I noticed that I was close enough that my lights weren't hitting the whole animal. It was basically from like right below the neck down to its knees. And it was on 4 legs, and it was tan, like a deer, brown tan. And I could see like a silhouette of its head. And the head was it looked to be very small, but it was looking in the direction I was driving. And I could see antlers. And I know people say, oh, it was a moose. This was not a moose, because moose are taller than this thing, but not nearly as muscular as this thing. And moose have those antlers that are really wide and come out, really wide. And this had almost like sickle type antlers. They were all pointy, all very long, and they were pointed from what I could see, pointed the same direct. They didn't come out. They kind of went up and out a little bit and then straight forward. So its antlers were pointing the same face its head was pointing. And, I could just see the silhouette. And it was actually for the size of this animal, it was a very small head. And this thing just slowly, step by step, walked across the road, acted like I wasn't even there. It didn't see me. And I still to this day remember the muscles on this animal's legs and its back. They were like, honest to God, they were like bowling balls just stacked upon each other. It just walked across the road, didn't jump, had no care in the world, wasn't in a hurry, and just continued to walk and walked off the left side of the road back into the ditch. And I was left there thinking, this wasn't a deer, because I've seen deer there, and I've seen deer basically all my life. This thing was way bigger than a deer, but it wasn't as tall as a moose. It was just weird. The muscles from its shoulders back along its body to its rump were enormous, but its neck was relatively long and didn't have any muscle to it. It was just like a regular deer neck. And from its knees down, they were just regular deer legs. I couldn't see its hooves because I was too close. But from what I could see from its knees down to the hood of the car, they would look like just regular deer legs. And whole incident lasted probably, 10, 15 seconds. And it never once looked at me. It never once cared that I was there. I was a car length from it with my bright lights on. It acted like it was just another day. It almost appeared that it was saying, I know you're there and I don't give a crap. It was like, I'm the king here. You don't scare me, and I'm purposely not going to look at you just almost to insult you. I know that's personifying an animal, but that was the kind of gait it had. Like, I'm bigger than you. I'm not scared of you, and I'm showing you I'm not scared of you by not even paying attention to you as I cross in front of you. That was the kind of vibe I got from it. So I didn't know what in the world this thing was. I still don't know what it was. For the rest of the week, nothing crazy. We saw deer at the park. We saw deer behind the motel, and they were not even remotely close to this. This thing, if it were to walk next to the car, its back would be taller than the car. I just don't know what it was. It was just huge. And it wasn't, it wasn't scary or frightening, but it was, you're going through that Rolodex in your mind of animals that and once you run out of that, you're just kind of gobsmacked. You don't know what you're looking at. So, it was like 10 or 15 seconds, and that was it. Didn't see anything like that after or since there or anywhere. It was just super, super weird. I don't know what it was.
Did you tell anybody about it after the next day or anything?
No, I have since told some people, and they just look at me like either, okay, you were on something or you just saw a really big deer. At the time, for the rest of the week, I just thought about it and thought, what was it? But yeah, for some reason, I just didn't mention it to anybody. Of course, I didn't know anybody there, of course, so I wouldn't come up to a stranger and say, hey, guess what I saw, but I did keep my eyes open for the rest of the time we were there, and I saw nothing even remotely close to it.
When did you say this happened, Mike?
It was September, I think, 2019.
Okay.
Like second week or so.
So you were talking about its horns pointing forward. Was it more like kind of like a bull's horns, just not wide? But you know how a bull's horns will just kind of shoot forward sometimes, or that one type of bull where they have those forward pointing horns. It was like those.
These went up like a deer, and then it looked like. Now, of course, I'm seeing it I'm not seeing it 3-dimensionally. It's looking away from me, but it went up and it curved out just a little bit. And then instead of pointing up, it's like they shifted and pointed forward. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Did it walk like it was having problems walking, or just was walking casually?
It was walking just like I was out for a stroll. No hurry at all. No limping, nothing, no surprise that I was there. It was a step, 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 and it walked across the road.
And so it wasn't like it was a deformed deer or some kind of mutated deer or anything like that. It just not, especially with not being that big either.
Yeah, I mean, from what I could tell, it looked to be more than healthy. I mean, it looked like it could take basically anything on and not care about it because it was so big. Now, it was literally almost cartoonish with the muscles. I've seen muscular, the pictures of the big muscular cows and the muscular kangaroo. They had nothing on this thing, but it was all center of the body muscle. It wasn't like, the neck was thick and muscular. The head looked to be, like I said, relatively small for the body. And the antlers, went up and out a little bit and then forward. They didn't splay like a moose or anything like that. And it wasn't, for what I could tell of the head, it was like a deer head. It wasn't like, it wasn't like an elk or a moose that has that big, that big long nose, that big long face. It was like somebody made this giant creature and then cut off its head and put a regular deer head on it and gave it some wicked antlers. It was strange. I've never seen anything like it. Not even on internet or drawings or anything. The closest I could think of would be in England. They had those giant prehistoric deer. It was bigger than that, but on those deers, those antlers came way out, like 5-6 feet, right? They were huge. And it didn't have the antlers, but it had a body that size, but even more muscular.
Yeah, that's a new one for us too.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching cryptid stuff for years now, and I've heard about deer men,
Mm-hmm.
but they tend, from what I remember, they tend to be like 2 legs, and they look like a deer on 2 legs. This thing was every bit the size of a Clydesdale, the body, but just more muscular.
Wow. What the heck could that have been? Every time we talk to people on the show and they tell us what they saw, we can normally relate that creature to something we've heard of in the past or something close or similar. This one's got me. I've never heard of this. And so my mind's just spinning trying to place it here. And you said prehistoric deer. I wonder if maybe they never became extinct. No, I mean, it's just so crazy. What is going on out there? Are these things getting created by the government? I mean,
it just struck me that it either didn't know I was there, which I don't know how that could be because I'm shining my bright lights on it and I'm a car lengths from it and the engine's running. I mean, it's not it's a small car. It's not like a big diesel truck, but it makes noise. Either was totally absent-minded and didn't see, but I just got this feeling that it knew I was there and it did not care one bit because it knew I wasn't going to touch it. I wasn't going to blow the horn at it. And if I got out and look at it, I was going to be toast. It was weird.
It almost makes you wonder if this thing hasn't seen vehicles a lot of times before and just disregards them like they're nothing, because every time that it sees one, the same thing probably happens. They probably stop. They're standing there looking at like you were, freaking out, going, what the hell is this? And it just walks on. And so it's probably not afraid or scared to get hit by anything because no one ever has hit it.
Yeah, that was the attitude it had. Just, I'm the boss of this island and, screw the rest of you. I'm just here and I'm going to do my thing and you're not going to touch me. That was maybe just because it was so weird and so big and so muscular. That's how I interpreted it. But the fact that it didn't even care or notice I was there, just like whatever,
So you would say this thing's almost like a Clydesdale horse mixed with a deer with different horns, but more muscle. Is that what you're saying, basically? Or the
Yeah,
size of a Clydesdale, basically?
my cousin got married at a horse ranch, and there were Clydesdales there. This was years after this happened, and yeah, he was every bit as big as tall as a Clydesdale. But I really can't get people to understand how these muscles look. I mean, I could see the muscles moving as it walked, but it was like Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime times 5 on this thing.
Wow.
It was just, I mean, it wasn't scary, but it was scary big. You know, if you would be walking through the woods and you saw this thing, you would turn the other way or you'd back away. You wouldn't want to get anywhere close to it.
Mm-hmm.
At least for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm a coward or smart.
No, if I was walking in the dark and walked up on a cow, I'd freak out probably. Just the size of the thing, you know, not knowing it was there.
Right.
That's just crazy. It makes you wonder if, again, we've said this before, if the government isn't out there experimenting on things, you know. Do you think the muscles on this thing were necessary for its survival? Do you think it moved and used these muscles? Obviously it did. I mean, I'm trying to figure out why it would need to be.
It was unnaturally muscular. You know, I don't know why an animal that's quote unquote a prey item would need to have that much muscle for it would seem to me almost a hindrance until it reaches a point that he's so big that bear or wolves or whatever, wild dogs or whatever, pumas, I don't know what they have there exactly, but I don't think there's any bear there. You know, I think the biggest thing would probably be a coyote there because it's an island, you know, and there's literally one road that gets in and out, so that animals would have to cross that road. So I don't see why a prey item would need muscles that big to survive. So it did look unnatural because of the actual size and the muscles to me.
Yeah, we went to Maine a couple years ago, and we never made it up to Bar Harbor. We were going to go, but we never made it up there, and we wanted to go to Acadia National Park and check it out. Did you ever make it over there to Acadia?
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody should go a couple of times because it's gorgeous. You know, they take you you can take a bus tour up the island or up into the park, and they'll stop at places, and they have, I mean, just the natural flowers and the streams. And you do see, you know, deer running around, but they're regular deer, you know, they're like the regular size of a deer. And they see you, and you're probably really on point about it being used to cars, because the regular deers would see you, the deer would see you and just look at you, and they'd keep an eye on you, but they wouldn't run from you, you know, when you're walking. So yeah, maybe it was used to it, but yeah, Acadia Park is absolutely beautiful. Bar Harbor is beautiful, and we would just go around the coast, and we found a little town there it was about boats, and we found a cemetery, which was, I'm not a history guy, but a cemetery there out in the middle, and there was a Minuteman gravestone from like the Revolutionary War. I thought that was really cool. So yeah, everybody needs to go up there. I'd like to go back again. But yeah, it's a beautiful place, even with that crazy thing running around, you know.
Are there any military bases up around there? Do you know?
Not on the island. I don't know on the mainland any, because, you know, we just went there just for the island, just for Bar Harbor in the park. So we didn't do much around. I'm sure there's something up there somewhere in the woods. That's how the government rolls, right?
It makes you wonder.
Yeah, usually.
You know, it makes you wonder if they're not trying stuff on animals and just letting them loose. But again, this wasn't. Yeah, the horns were completely different. The body thing is totally weird. It makes you wonder, you know, are they out there experimenting on things and just setting them loose in these parks and everything? But
as big as this thing was, and the size was kind of scary, just the size, but the antlers look like they were evolved or designed or whatever to be pretty nasty. I mean, they weren't like, you know, you see a regular like whitetail or a mule deer, and they have antlers and they can do some damage, but this thing looked like something from a fairy, like a Little Red Riding Hood, Big Bag Wolf type of fairy tale. I mean, they didn't point up, they pointed forward, and they looked like they could, they were meant for business.
They could spear something pretty easily if they wanted
They
to.
could, yeah.
They probably have.
Yeah, I mean, with the size of that
probably.
thing and the strength it would have, I mean, it could trample. I know when people hit moose, they do a lot of damage, and they tend to flip through your window and they stomp you to death with their hooves. And I've seen moose chase away bear and stuff. So if they can do that, and this thing was bigger than a moose, and it looked to be a lot more powerful. I couldn't imagine what those things would do. Those antlers.
Well, that tells you one thing. If there's one, there's probably more.
Oh, that's kind of a frightening thought, but yeah.
Unless it is a government experiment, and there's only one out there and roaming around. But
It's a one-off, and they just dumped it off.
Yeah, but it's a touristy place. I would think that wouldn't be the place to dump it off, but maybe they dumped it in the woods up there and it came down on its own. Because if it's walking down that road that goes to the island, nobody's going to hit it. It's just too big.
I don't know. I wonder if there's not people out there trying to play God sometimes and just
I'm sure they're
able to mix and match these things and come up with.
I'm sure.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy. And if not, where are these things coming from?
Well, hopefully, once this episode gets out there and people hear it, somebody else will come forward and have seen the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys hear, if anyone else has seen anything similar to this, please reach out to us. You don't have to come on the show. Just reach out to us and
let us know.
Tell us that there's more of these things out there and this isn't just a one-off kind of thing. You ever thought about going back and looking for it again? Would you want to see it again, Mike?
I wouldn't go back just to look for it. I would go back and hope to see it because the area is just, I mean, if you like being in nature, the area is just so spectacular that as big and as funky as this thing was, it didn't ruin the trip. It was just another memory from the trip. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if anybody out there is even thinking about it or considering it or up in that area and wants to go one day, highly, highly recommend it. It's a beautiful place.
And there are other cryptids up there in that area, so wouldn't be a wasted trip.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, before this happened, Mike, did you believe in anything like Bigfoot or anything like that?
Yeah, I've been following cryptids for, I got into it with the ghost shows back in the 2000s, and then I found out all these other podcasts and these stories about cryptids and stuff. So I've been following, I listened to your show and a bunch of other shows, and always searching out for a new show, trying to hear more things and more experiences. But it's one of those things where, for me, Bigfoot and Dogman and Loch Ness Monster and all this kind of thing, I wouldn't say absolutely not, but it's really hard to believe until you see it for yourself. I mean, you can get on YouTube and look around, but the videos are so stupid, they're so fake. But at the same time, if somebody does have a video or a picture that is actually real, it's going to look too good or too real, and people are going to say it's fake anyway. So it's kind of it's
catch-22.
Yeah, you're better off not having a picture.
Yeah, but without seeing something like that, I can't fully believe it. I know a lot of people, especially city people, when they go in the woods, they see things that are normal and natural, and they think, "Oh my God, look at that! That's a monster," or whatever. People's imaginations run wild, especially when they're scared.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, I can't believe every story that you hear, and some of them you hear are just so fantastic. I just can't believe them, but seeing is believing for me anyway.
Well, and like you said too, you listen to a lot of different podcasts. I do too. I'm sure Brian does too. And we've heard hundreds, if not thousands, of encounters and with people. And to hear all these and listen to these over and over and over, you tell yourself, these people aren't lying. I mean, most of them aren't lying. I believe most of these people, if not all of them. There's some out there that probably do it for the fame and maybe make a little stuff up here and there. But just hearing all these and hearing about these different creatures out there. And we love getting people like you, Mike, on the show who've had a new, different cryptid. I love the new cryptids. So now I'm going to be excited about this not deer thing or whatever we want to call this. And I'm going to be digging into it. You know, I've never heard of this really before ever. And that's cool.
Yeah, I tried to look up some not deer stuff, and I can't find a lot of it because when you say not deer, it thinks you're talking about something that's not a deer, you know.
Right.
So it's
which is everything but a deer, right?
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it's hard to find out, but I've heard some stories. I don't know if you guys ever listened to one of Jim Harold's podcast, but he would always say, if there's a million stories out there and only one of them is true, then there's an issue. Right. And that's
what we say. It only takes one person to be telling the truth to make it real.
Yeah, exactly. Whether it be UFOs or monsters or, cryptids or whatever.
Yeah, whichever. All right. So you said you had another thing happen on a Groundhog Day.
Yeah, this was not scary. It was just weird.
We like weird.
Weird is my life sometimes. We were in Florida and we came up. I don't know why we came up to Ohio again. I'm from here, but somebody in the family may have died. I don't know. We were up here for some reason. I don't remember what it was. We were staying in a hotel in Columbus, which is in the center of the state. And down in the southeast of the state, there's a place called Old Man's Cave, right? It's a basically like a little tiny, super tiny Grand Canyon, right? And we always go down there and you can always walk around, and it's a gorge and there's a waterfall and there's something called the Devil's Bathtub there and where the old man lived and stuff. So it's a nice place to get out and, walk around and enjoy nature and see some cool things. So on Saturday night, we decided we're going to get up early on Sunday and we're going to go to Old Man's Cave. So we get up and we leave about 7:30 in the morning, and it's about an hour and a half drive from Columbus. So you have to from where we were at. So you have to go around the outer belt, and then you get on State Route 33 and you just drive south. And State Route 33 is mostly a 2-lane interstate, one direction back and forth. So we get in the car and we're driving. We come up, we just got on State Route 33, and it's a Sunday morning, 7:45, 8 o'clock. And there's nobody really out. Everybody's either sleeping or at church or breakfast. So we're driving, and I noticed up ahead of us, there was a 2-car accident, and one of the lanes were closed. And I thought it was weird. How do you get in a 2-car accident on a Sunday when there's nobody around? It is just bizarre. So we got over the lane, we passed them, got back into the right lane, and we were in no hurry. So I set the cruise control, and we were just driving. And I'm a big car guy, so I like, new cars or old, nice cars. I just like to look at them. So I see in my side mirror that there's a Ford Ranger coming up, and this was like 2018, I think it is. I think it was in March or April. So it was springtime, and it was a nice sunny day and everything. Not super hot, but it was a nice day. And I see in my mirror this old truck coming up, and it's going a little faster than me. So I watch it as it passes, and it's like a mid-'80s Ford Ranger, right? So that's an old truck. Ford Rangers, back then they don't really last forever, especially in a place where there's salt and snow and stuff. But this thing literally looked like it rolled off the showroom floor. It was like a reddish or orange color, something like that. No rust, no scratches, no dents. Even the under in the wheel wells, it wasn't dirty or anything. And he passed me, and I'm thinking, man, that truck's in awesome condition. How is that even possible here? With the snow and the salt and that kind of stuff. And it was an older guy. He was probably in his mid-50s, and he drove past, and I looked over at him, and he paid no attention to us. He just kept on driving, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's fine." So he passes us, and this truck was just. I mean, it was weird how good of condition it was in. So he drives on past, and we're just cruising, and I noticed there's a car coming from a road to my right, and it's it's doing the entrance ramp thing to the highway. And it gets in front of me, and it's either silver or gray. I couldn't tell, Chevy Cavalier. And I get a little closer, and it has West Virginia tags on it. Now, that's no big deal because we're going towards West Virginia, right? So I think, okay, well, they're going back to West Virginia. They were here for the weekend or the week or whatever. And they were going a little slower than me. So I get in the passing lane, and we're in no rush. We're just casually driving past. I look over, and it's this cute little black lady. And she's got looks like a flowered dress and a flowered hat and spectacles. And I'm thinking, oh, she's either, well, I guess she's not coming from church because it was early. So she must have been going to church, right? So I pass her, and she pays me no mind. And I go around her, and I get back in the lane, and we drive for a little bit. And then a few minutes later, in front of me, I see this car, and I'm getting closer. And I'm like, oh, that's a silver car or gray or something. I get a little closer, and it's a Chevy Cavalier. Cavaliers haven't been around for a while. Oh, that's weird. And I get a little closer, and it has West Virginia plates. I'm like, oh, what are the odds of seeing two cars like this from West Virginia? So I get over, and I go past her, or go past the car, I look over, and it's this same little black lady with the dress and the hat and the spectacles. And I'm thinking, how did she pass me when we didn't stop? Full tank. There's no reason to stop to eat. We had breakfast. It's only an hour or so drive. It's not like we were driving for 9 or 10 hours and you need a potty break or anything. So I'm thinking somehow this lady passed me and I didn't see it, which is super unusual because I'm super vigilant. I'm kind of an anal retentive type of driver, see what's going on around me. Always looking in the mirrors and stuff. So somehow this lady was going slower than me, sped up and passed me. I didn't see it, and then she slowed back down. It sounds very odd for a little old lady, but that had to be what happened, right? So we keep on driving, and in the distance, we see a car. We get a little closer. It's a light-colored car. Get a little closer. It's a silver or gray Chevy Cavalier. Get a little closer. It's got West Virginia tags. And I said, okay, now what's going on? So I know this woman didn't pass me because I was watching for her. So I get over, I'm like, it's got to be just another person. I get over, and it's the same lady again. And I start to get a little freaked out because I'm thinking, am I losing my mind? What's going on? So I get back over, and I said to myself, okay, now I'm on the lookout for this car in front of me, behind me, beside me, off in the ditch, in the sky, wherever this car is. I'm looking for this car. Drive a little bit more, maybe 10 minutes or so, 15, off in the distance, here comes the car again. Same lane. And I get a little closer. Silver or gray, Cavalier, get a little closer, West Virginia tags. And now I'm starting to panic a little bit. So I go around her, and I'm thinking, please don't be that lady. Please don't be that lady. And I look over, and it's the same lady again. And this happened 4, maybe 5 times. I lost track of how many times it happened. I know it happened at least 4. And, we never stopped. We never took an exit. We were on the same road we started back, when we left and saw the accident. And we're driving, and off in the distance, I remember I was going kind of like down a hill, and off in the distance going up a hill, I see this little car again. And we're getting a little closer, and I'm watching it, and it's a light-colored car. And I'm thinking, if this is that lady, I'm going to have a meltdown because I don't know what's happening. And we get a little closer, and then I see the sign that says, Old Man's Cave, turn here, or whatever it said. And I turned and went on about the day. I didn't see it this last time. I didn't see who was in the car or what kind of car it was. I just knew it was a small, light-colored car from a distance. And we went about the day, went to Old Man's Cave, nothing happened, went home, nothing happened. But for that 45 minutes or so, we were doing that. I passed this lady at least 4 times, and I never got off at the exit. I never slowed down. There was 1 or maybe 2 lights on this road with big intersections. I almost stopped at one, but it turned green before I got there, and the other one was already green. So I never came to a full stop. I never got off the road once I got on it until I got to the cave exit. I never saw this lady pass me. And as I looked back on it later, I remember that the cars coming towards me, going the opposite direction, I I only remember seeing two or three, which even though it was a Sunday, that seemed like not many cars for a Sunday. I would expect, maybe see a dozen or 2 dozen cars during that length of, it's like an hour drive. But I remember seeing two or three. So I look back on it, only 2 or 3 cars coming towards me. The accident on a Sunday morning when there's nobody around, how these two cars hit each other. The guy in the Ranger whose truck looked like it was brand new, who didn't even act like he saw me. And now I got this crazy lady. I'm sure she was nice, but she was freaking me out. Passing her at least 4 times without ever exiting. So it was like, I don't know if it was like a Groundhog Day type of thing, or maybe it almost seemed like, I don't know. It was just so bizarre. I kind of want to say maybe it was like a time slip type of thing, but the Cavalier was newer than the Ranger. The Cavalier was probably in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, and the Ranger was probably like an 86 or 87 Ford Ranger. It still had the regular type of headlights on it, and it was real boxy. So I don't know what happened. I do know down in that area toward Appalachia, down that direction, weird things have been reported to happen, and you get into the Appalachians and even more weird things happen. So I don't know. It was just super, super weird. It freaked me out. I was freaked out the whole day about it, but I couldn't. The rest of the day went all fun. Nothing weird happened. It was just on that stretch of road. So I don't know what that was. I don't know if that lady was messing with me somehow that I wasn't seeing. I don't know. But after the second time this happened, I passed her. I made it a point to watch for this lady and nothing but this lady. And I passed her at least 2 more times after that. So I don't know what that was all about.
When I hear these things, again, like I said before, I start to think about other things and I try to tie things together. And you said Old Route 33, or State Road 33, or US 33 runs right through where Brian and I live, basically.
Oh, okay.
And I've been on 33 plenty of times. We traveled to West Virginia. My parents are from there. But that area you're talking about is in Hocking Hills or Hocking County, Ohio. Yep. And Hocking Hills or Hocking County, Ohio is very famous for Bigfoot sightings, dogman sightings, disappearances of people, strange, weird phenomena.
UFOs.
And I almost wonder if areas like this in Ohio and areas we've heard of in other states aren't like a portal area or some kind of dimensional weird, wherever these things are coming from, if they're not of this earth, are coming through these areas, and that's a very strange area in general, and a lot of things go on there. So I'm not surprised that you had that happen. And yeah, you probably were in a time slip. I'm guessing this lady wasn't of this era. She probably was back in the 80s or whenever this you saw that brand new truck.
Mm-hmm.
It was
you're a
weird
fanatic
because,
about Ford Rangers, who's going to keep a Ford Ranger up that?
Right. Or who can keep a Ford Ranger in that good a condition, right? I mean, it's hard to find a 2001 around here. This frame's not rusted away, right? Because I wanted to get a little truck a year or so ago, just a runabout, and they all have rusted frames or their frames are cracked and all this kind of stuff. And those are the newer ones. So, yeah, I mean, I just thought it was weird that the guy in the truck and the old lady acted like they didn't even notice I was there. I mean, one person, yes, I can get it, but two, and that strangeness going on, it just seemed like they weren't even seeing me. She didn't see me when I passed her. I didn't see her look in the mirror when I came up on her. When I got in front of her, she didn't. I mean, I didn't cut her off or anything, of course, but she didn't. She just seemed like she was just gone. And maybe she was just an older lady that wasn't paying attention and didn't care. That's possible. My mom's like that, so. I don't know. I just thought it was really bizarre, especially after the second time it happened, and then it happened the third time, and then the fourth time, and maybe a fifth time. I lost track of how many times that happened, but I know it happened at least 4 times.
I don't know how I would have handled that. I don't know. I would probably just turn around and went home. I don't know if I could have dealt with that. I would have just lost my mind.
I don't think I'd have been all right with that.
I didn't know. I mean, it was one of those things where your brain's trying to process it, and it can't, and it doesn't think about doing this is what we were going to do. Let's just keep doing that. The other 99% of my brain is going to try to process what I saw, and it just didn't process it. I didn't even think about it. I thought afterwards, maybe I should have got a picture of her license plate, because maybe there's 3 little old black ladies driving the same car from West Virginia in the same outfit, and they have different license plates.
Sure, that wouldn't be weird at all.
That may even be worse, actually. Now that I think about it.
I would have followed her the last time. I'd have been like, I'm following this woman.
I was scared. I didn't know what was happening. I was just out on a Sunday morning. I mean, it's not out in the middle of nowhere, but it kind of is when you're from the city, I just didn't know what to do. So my brain just kept on saying, just said, keep on going and we'll figure it out later. And it never figured it out.
Did you ever look anything up on that? See if anyone else had seen anything or had anything like that happen in the area before? If there's any kind of...
I never did. I didn't think about that, actually. But yeah, I never did that.
It's something to look into.
Yeah.
That whole stretch of the Appalachian Mountains coming up from Pennsylvania, even into western Pennsylvania, then Ohio, southern Ohio. There's just strangeness in those mountains. I mean, you get down in those areas, and this kind of stuff is what goes on. You see just weird things. You experience weird things. We talked to a gal a couple of weeks ago who had a time slip, and she was in the Appalachian area in Pennsylvania. I'm sorry, New York. New York,
yeah.
Yeah, but still Appalachian Mountain area.
Well, yeah, I remember. I was listening to that the other day. I remember that.
Yeah, and what is going on with this mountain range, or what is going on with mountains in general?
That's why yours reminded me of hers a little bit in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, I listened to that. I actually had a friend of mine. He did the whole Appalachian Trail from bottom to top a few years ago. It took him 6 months, but he did it. And I asked him if he ever saw anything, weird or anything. He said no, but he wasn't the type to talk about that kind of stuff either. So maybe he did and didn't say it, but I don't know. But he never admitted anything to me, so I don't know.
Well, sometimes I wonder if certain people just can't experience these things. They're not open or in tune to things like other people, or they're not able to see things. And some people might be able to see things or experience things more than others just because of whatever reason, their spirituality. I don't know. So maybe he just didn't see anything because he didn't, it's not in his realm. But maybe it is with yours. Maybe you're just more of an open kind of person that these things are safe to show themselves to. I don't know.
My whole life, since my whole adult life, I've had weird things happen, and they always happen in groups of like 3. I've had every place I've lived, there's been something weird going on in the house. Things appearing, things disappearing, things being knocked over. I don't know how many times I had to go out and buy new underwear because my underwear kept disappearing, and that's some kind of weird ghost that's taking my underwear. But it's just really bizarre things have always happened to me, and they always come in threes. Just recently I had some bad things happen in threes in the past 2 weeks. So it's always groups of 3. And I tell people the stories, and they just look at me and they're like, how do you live like that? I'm like, well, it's just natural. For me, it's weird and creepy and sometimes a little disturbing, but that's just how I've been for 40 some years. So I'm almost kind of used to it. If something doesn't happen after a while, I get a little worried or concerned, and then it's weird to say, but I guess that's just how I'm just used to it.
Interesting. Do you ever think about something that it happens?
I do have a lot,
more so than normal, I guess.
Off and on, I do have a lot of deja vu. Somebody will say something and I can in my head, I can say what they're going to say before they say it. It's like they say, hey, I went to the store the other day. And then in my head, I think, oh, she's saying that she got some ice cream and the seal was open. She had to take it back. And then she said, I got some ice cream. The seal was open. I had to take it back. That kind of stuff. I remember one time I was driving through downtown Columbus I was young and I was out probably later than I should have been, but that's a different story. And I was driving through the city, and one of the streets, if you hit the first light green, you can time all the other lights through the city green. And I was driving through the city, and I kept this intersection that was green, and a voice said, "You need to slow down." And I slowed down, and then some guy blew through the red light doing about 70 through downtown Columbus. And if I wouldn't have slowed down, he would, T-boned me, right? So I get that sometimes too. I've physically been touched before. I thought I was crazy, and then when my dog started reacting to it and seeing it and experiencing it, what's the odds of a crazy person getting two crazy dogs? So I think there's probably something going on. But personally, it's never been, knock on wood, it's never been anything bad or negative. It's just kind of creepy or something. You just kind of say, "Oh, that's interesting." Some of the women I work with, they're freaking out when I tell them the story, but I'm just like, well, that's just how my life is, I guess.
That's cool. I mean, maybe you're, like we've said before, there's people out there who we call sensitive, and we don't mean that their feelings are sensitive. We mean that they're open to experience things a lot more than other people.
Right.
You could probably walk through any section of the Appalachian Trail and have a Bigfoot encounter one time, right? Whereas your buddy could go up and down for 6 months and not have one thing happen to him.
Not see anything.
I'd be shocked if I could walk through the Appalachian Trail 6 months and not have an experience, because there's got to be something weird that would go on.
Well, even if it's not something cryptid or supernatural, there's crazy people out there.
Yeah.
Something
weird can happen.
He stayed at hostels on his way up. Don't tell me there's not some crazy person at a hostel somewhere, or So that's why when he said no, I just said, oh, okay. And I believed him because he was my buddy, but at the same time, I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm getting the whole entire truth, but I'm not going to press it, because he was not the type of person who was into that kind of stuff. And when you talked about it, he really shied away from it a lot. So I didn't want to push it because, that's, I just didn't want to do that. But
yeah, there's maybe a third of the people that experience stuff say anything. Maybe a third,
Maybe. Mm-hmm.
You could have been like, I'm not saying anything because I don't want people to think I'm crazy, and never said a word about what you experienced. But I'm glad you came on and told us this stuff.
Listening to your show and other shows like it, I'm more open to talk about it. But I was not going to tell a random person.
Right.
I would tell people who I trust, and even if they do make fun of me, I know that's basically because they're trying to be funny. They don't think I'm a nutcase or whatever. I try to keep an open mind on everything, but I don't want it to be so open that my brains fall out. So I have to be skeptical. Right. But I also, when things happen to you and you can't really explain it, I have to acknowledge it. Now, if somebody comes along and says, "Oh, this is why this happened," I'm always like, when I was in Old Man's Cave that time, I took a picture and it had something on the picture, and I put it into, I think it was one of Jim Harold's groups. I'm like, "What is this? And this is weird. Is it a spirit? Whatever." And they said, "No, it's lens flare." I'm like, "Oh, well, that makes sense." So
what you saw on the road was just your windshield flare. That wasn't anything. Right.
I had to drive that car
a smudge on your windshield.
Reflection of the moon.
Yeah. It was weird. So, but both of those, neither one of those times, like I said, hindered my enjoyment of what we were doing later for the rest of the week. It was just something that stands out.
I'll bet you if you get out in the woods down there where you're at, or in Ohio, you're going to have a Bigfoot encounter sooner or later if you really wanted to. I don't know if you want to.
A couple of years ago, we went to Michigan and we rented a cabin in the woods. And I had this idea: I'm going to go out into the woods at night, and I'm going to do these howls and see if I get Michigan Dogman comes around. I was all for it, and it got dark, and I went outside and I said, "No, I'm good," because it was dark.
It gets really dark in them woods.
Yeah, I was like, "No, I'm good. I'll just stay."
People don't realize how dark it is in woods.
Yeah, it was. Even before the sun actually went down, it was dark. And then like at 10:30 at night, no, I'm good. Kept all the lights on outside. I turned into a little coward that day.
Yeah, there's dark and then there's woods dark.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Mike, it was great having you on, man. I know we've been talking for a while, and
thanks for sticking with it. I appreciate.
Oh, no problem, man.
I know it was kind of a nightmare, but
no worries.
Got it figured out.
It was awesome hearing your experiences and encounters, and your groundhog day experience, whatever that was, time slip experience, and yeah, we appreciate
And
it.
hopefully, like I said, once this is out there, people will hear it and they'll get a hold of us or come forward and say something that they've had the same
I'd like
experience.
to have at least one of them, justified by somebody else a little bit at some point.
Yeah, we definitely would too. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you again, sir.
Always. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Yeah, stay in touch, Mike. We appreciate it.
All right. See ya.
You're listening to the Cryptid Creatures Show. If you're a fan of the show, go and check out our new Patreon site. You'll get access to our private Discord server, exclusive merchandise, access to all live streams and Q&As, discounts on merch from the Cryptid Creatures store, and get a chance to be a guest host during one of the show's recordings. Just go to www.patreon.com/cryptidcreatures1. Thank you for listening and supporting the show. Cryptid Creatures. Find us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, it's Brian. Join me and my co-host Todd as we investigate those things that go bump in the night. We'll talk to real people who have had real face-to-face encounters.
There's 2 of them across the creek at the big rocks.
With cryptid beings. From Bigfoot to aliens to even demons. By the end, you'll be asking, do I believe? Cryptid Creatures.
Find us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts.